You've probably stuffed a Kong. You've maybe even froze it overnight to give it to your dog, and that's awesome. But that is just the beginning. When most dog parents think of food-based enrichment, they think of a frozen Kong that takes their dog about 20 minutes to finish. But food enrichment is not just about slowing your dog down. It is about turning mealtime and food into a full-body, full-mind experience. In today's episode of Dog Enrichment with Tori Mistick, we are diving deep into the science behind food-based enrichment. Why chewing, scavenging, and maybe even a sprinkle of parsley in your dog's dinner can change how your dog feels. I'm personally really excited about this topic because I have been a Labrador mom for over 20 years, and labs are infamously food motivated. So I've been having tons of fun for decades, giving my dogs all kinds of food-based enrichment, and oftentimes they have shown me what kind of food-based enrichment they are most interested in. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Tori Mistick. I am the founder of WhereWagRepeat.com, where I've been blogging about life with my dogs for almost 13 years now. I'm also a certified canine enrichment technician, and I love showing people that enriching your dog's life doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be difficult. On this podcast, I am sharing with you tons of easy, inexpensive ways that you can have a lot of fun with your dog to strengthen their brain, their body, and the bond that they share with you. And I'm also sharing with you all the science behind it. So if you have heard that your dog needs a food puzzle or a snuffle mat or something like that, and you've wondered why, on this podcast, we are going to get into it, and especially on this episode, all about food-based enrichment. A couple of things that we're going to go through in this episode. We are going to talk about how chewing, deep jaw chewing, can make your dog calm, and I have some scientific studies to back it up, which I'm excited about. We will also talk about how variety can keep your dog excited and engaged. We will look into choice and how giving your dog choices when it comes to enrichment can really build their confidence and their general satisfaction. And then finally, I really want to tell you about how you can add some simple ingredients from your kitchen into your dog's bowl to make it more enriching, to add some nutrients to their food, and also to deepen the bond that you share with each other. And then finally, towards the end of this episode, I have a listener question that is about food enrichment today. And if you have any questions, you can always go to toriknowsdogs.com/podcast. There is a form right at the bottom of that page to submit your questions, and I might answer them on a future episode of this podcast. If you are a new listener here on the podcast, this is a brand new limited series. Season 1 is 10 episodes where each episode I am diving deep into the science behind a different category of enrichment. So last episode was episode 2, and we talked about cognitive enrichment. Today is food-based enrichment, and the next episode coming out will be all about visual enrichment. It's really fun to explore all the different kinds. And as we get into these episodes, you'll see how there's a lot of overlap between the different categories of enrichment. And of course, if you ever want to read more blog posts or get ideas, I've got tons of YouTube videos. I have tons and tons of blog posts. ToriKnowsDogs.com is a great, easy to remember URL that you can go to find everything that I do. That will actually redirect you to WhereWagRepeat.com, where I've been blogging for a pretty long time about my life with dogs. Without further ado, let's get into this episode. The first really fascinating thing that I want to share with you is about chews. So there was a study done in 2023 by Hannah Flint and some of her other colleagues, and what kind of prompted them to do this study is that they knew that dogs have negative feelings and emotions when they're left alone for a period of time. In her study, she calls it social isolation, but that could be as simple as leaving your dog home alone when you go to work or when you go out and run errands during the day. And we know that most dogs are feeling some sort of negative experience. In fact, 22 to 55%, so it's kind of a wide window, but still from a quarter to half of dogs are experiencing separation anxiety in some way. So Hannah Flint and her colleagues decided to do a study to see how dogs would respond to 3 different options that would kind of help them through their separation anxiety. One was a treat dispensing toy. One was a treat dispensing gadget, is it called the Furbo camera, I think, where you can control it from an app and you can send your dog treats while you're away from the home. So that was option number 2. And then the third one was a long-lasting, all-natural chew. And what they found in this study, that actually chewing changes your dog's mood, more so than the other 2 options. So a treat dispensing toy, that could be like that frozen Kong we were talking about, or any sort of thing that they have to roll around the room to get kibble or treats to fall out of, or it could be something like that Furbo camera where you can virtually and actually in reality send treats to your dog, that those were not as effective as letting your dog chew on an all-natural, long-lasting chew. And you really want to find something that is hard enough and big enough that your dog can chew it with their back molars. That is where we are going to get the endorphins that help your dog chill out. So in this study, they found that just 10 minutes of this deep jaw chewing can release enough endorphins to help your dog feel more satisfied and more relaxed and happier to go about their day. Another interesting thing that I found as I was reading this study, I read everything and then I tell you about it so that you don't have to go read these studies, but I was reading it and I found that it was really interesting. They actually suggested that doing enrichment like this, like providing chews or even doing the treats and the treat dispensing toys, that they can be more effective at combating separation anxiety because it helps your dog develop permanent abilities to cope with challenges and it gives them improved brain function. Like if you go back and listen to episode 2 about cognitive enrichment, we see how important enrichment is to making your dog happy. And in this study, it really suggested that enrichment could be a better solution to separation anxiety than medication. So that was really fascinating. Of course, always consult your veterinarian, and there are various different behavioral issues that do require medication, but enrichment can always be something that can help with that. Now, let's talk about what types of chews are safe. This was not necessarily in the study, but this is in my expertise and my experience. So you always want to make sure that you have a chew that is the right size for your dog, that they're going to be able to get that deep jaw chewing. So bully sticks can be a really great option. You want to avoid rawhide chews. They're not digestible, and oftentimes they are chemically processed to give them that very white, light color. If it gets to be around the holiday season and you see all those rawhide chews that are knotted up and braided up and they're red and green, don't buy those. If someone gives them to you, throw them in the garbage. I'm sorry, but they are not worth the potential digestive obstruction that your dog could get. It's not just rawhides that can be dangerous for your dog, but anything that is too hard. So the best rule of thumb is if you can't make a dent in the chew with your thumbnail, it's too hard for your dog. So that means I don't recommend antler chews, and I don't really like the Himalayan yak milk ones. I also find that they can kind of split and splinter and they can become really sharp. So those are the things that I like and the things that I avoid. You also want to pay attention as your dog ages. Like, so Bert here is 13 and a half years old. And I have noticed that he can't really handle the toughest chews that he used to get a couple of years ago. So I like buying chews from a brand called Farmhounds. And I'll put links to all this stuff in the show notes. So don't worry, you can always find those. Again, it's toriknowsdogs.com/podcast. Super easy. I used to buy Bert these really, really super hardy chews. It was a rolled cowhide that still had the fur on it. But now that Bert's a little bit older, I don't give him those super, super hard ones because I was finding that it just kind of made his gums bleed as he was getting older, and it's just a little bit too hard for him. So So supervise your dog, make sure to adapt as they get older, and always give them the appropriate chew for them. And if you go to that landing page that I set up, I also have a free guide there. The Ultimate Enrichment Guide is what I called it, where I put all of my favorite enrichment freebies and bonuses I've created over the years into one 16-page PDF that you just put in your email and I'll send it right over to you. But in there, I also have some chew toys that are the toughest, most durable chew toys, but not hard. So they're not going to chip your dog's teeth and they're safe to use. I hope you found this super interesting. And the next time that you're planning on leaving your dog home alone, try giving them a long-lasting chew, maybe as you're getting ready to leave so you can still supervise. I don't love to give them stuff when I'm not home, when I'm not able to supervise and watch them because I'm afraid of choking hazards. But maybe while you're getting ready to leave in the morning, you give your dog this long-lasting chew, and they'll get their little endorphin boost, and they'll be all ready to chill out when you do have to leave for the day. All right, so this brings us to number 2, the second thing I want to share with you today, another really interesting study. This was done in 2018 by Annika Bremhorst and her colleagues. They did a study that looked at how to keep dogs excited about their rewards long term. So I guess a common issue can be that when you're training your dog, they kind of get bored of the treats that you're giving them, and it's not as effective as a reward long term. They're like, another little tiny piece of that biscuit. I'm over it. I'm not doing that trick one more time. I guess that could happen. But more commonly, and we'll get to this actually with our listener Q&A, is I hear from a lot of people that their dog gets bored of their food. So what this study from Annika Bremhorst and her colleagues found was that dogs work harder and they stay engaged longer when their rewards change on a regular basis. So basically, variety beats predictability. And there's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate this into your life with your dog. So, for example, at mealtime, again, we're talking all about food-based enrichment here. So at mealtime, it's becoming more and more popular to put some sort of topper on your dog's food, and you can incorporate a lot of variety with their toppers. So maybe one day you're including a little bit of plain yogurt and some blueberries. Another day you've got some canned pumpkin. Maybe you cook up some plain turkey for them that you can add on to their meals. We're not entirely changing their diet, and unless your dog has a very sensitive tummy, this should be safe to do. But again, you should know your dog well. And if they have a very, very sensitive tummy, I would not recommend that you do this, or maybe ease into it very, very slowly with your veterinarian's advice. But for most dogs, this should be a really safe way to provide them with some food enrichment. So food enrichment doesn't always have to be some sort of stuffed toy or a puzzle or a snuffle mat or something like that. Actually, just providing variety and access to different things can be really enriching for your dog. So you can do a little taste test and see if they enjoy having some strawberries in their food, if they enjoy having frozen strawberries in their food. You can play around with textures, temperatures, sweet things like berries, or savory things like cooked turkey, or a little sprinkle of some liver treats or something like that on your dog's food. And that's a really great way to mix it up for them. When you are training your dog, another fun thing you can try is a treat trail mix. So in your treat pouch that you're taking out on a walk with your dog, or when you're working on training, try putting in like a little mix of different treats. This is actually so practical and so great because I always end up with treat bags in my cupboard that have just like a few things left in them. And after I read this study and figured out how great providing unexpected variety to your dog is, and how it really keeps them going and keeps them excited when they're not exactly sure what's going to come out of that treat pouch, now I'm just going to empty all those half-empty bags, or the ones that have like 3 treats left. I'll put them all in my pouch, and that way Bert is not going to know what the next treat is going to be, and he's going to be more excited than ever before. I hope that that's something that you will try in your routine with your dog, because it couldn't be easier to just give them a little bit of variety. Now, let's get into a really important concept of canine enrichment, which is choice. This is not limited just to food-based enrichment. This could be for all kinds of things. When you take your dog for a walk, maybe let them choose which direction that you go in. But today we are just thinking about food-based enrichment. So again, there was a really interesting to me, that was done. It was published in 2023. And there was a great review that was done, and it looked at dozens of different welfare studies. And it found that animals who were given choice and control, even in small ways, showed lower stress levels, lower cortisol levels, and a more positive emotional state overall. So in this study, they said providing choice and control can buffer stress. So if you have a dog who gets a little anxious, who gets a little bit stressed out, giving them choices throughout their day, even small choices like at mealtime, can actually lower their general stress level and make your dog happier. How cool is that? Basically, when your dog has a say in things, they're happier. So here's how you can do this with your dog. Give your dog some simple food choices. So maybe you put out 2 different bowls. One has some warm bone broth in it, and the other one has some canned plain pumpkin puree on top. And put both of the bowls in front of your dog and give them the choice to see which one they eat. Now, of course, we don't want to waste any food. Dog food is expensive these days, isn't it? So maybe you just put out a little bit of their food in each one, see which one they prefer. Maybe they do want to eat both of them, but you're giving them the choice of which bowl to begin with. Another thing, I actually just did this with Bert the other night, is I'll put half of his dinner on one type of slow feeder bowl, and I might put half of his dinner in a snuffle mat or a different slow feeder bowl. And then he gets the choice of which bowl he wants to begin with. And simple choices like this can actually lower your dog's stress levels, lower their cortisol levels, and make them just generally happier. So since Bert in particular is a boy who struggles with a little bit of separation anxiety and anxiety in general, giving him these little tiny bursts of choice and free will throughout the day can really improve his mood. And what's really cool is that when you give your dog this choice, it kind of turns mealtime into communication. So you are learning more about your dog. You're learning their preferences and their likes and their dislikes. And it just is going to deepen the bond that you share with your dog. You're going to have more and deeper trust with one another. And it's really just, you're going to feel a spark of connection with your dog when you start doing these kinds of activities with them. And in fact, if you do that treat trail mix idea that I had, that I just shared in the last kind of section of the episode, that's a really great way that you could see, does your dog prefer different treats over other ones, or are they just excited for everyone because it's always fresh and new and they don't know what's coming next? So have fun, experiment, and ultimately give your dog what they like the most. The final idea that I want to share with you here today is about adding different fresh herbs and even some spices to your dog's meals. So my friend Hannah Zulueta, we have known each other since our early dog blogging days. We've been friends for over a decade, and she has gotten really involved as a canine nutritionist. She's studying acupuncture, and she's really into traditional Chinese medicine. So Hannah, I saw her in person almost a year ago, and she gave an amazing talk. She was talking all about different herbs and spices that you can add to your dog's meals and the different benefits of them. So these were things like basil, parsley, mint, cilantro, and cinnamon. So these are all things that a lot of us have in our spice rack or growing in our garden. And there's a ton of health benefits to these. I'm going to link to a blog post that I wrote, and I have links to Hannah's talk as well, all in the show notes. So again, toriknowsdogs.com/podcast. You can find all of the resources that I am sourcing and using here and all the products that I recommend there. But what I love about this idea from Hannah is that you don't have to always be buying very expensive toppers or expensive tools to enrich your dog's life. I bought a very small little parsley plant at the beginning of the summer for maybe $3 at Trader Joe's, and I planted it in my backyard, and I've been growing parsley all summer. And I've been loving to add fresh parsley to Bert's meals. I add it to as many of my meals as I can remember to, because parsley is actually one of the most nutrient-dense foods out there, which seems kind of surprising because parsley is sort of overlooked. People think it's like a garnish and they don't want it, but it's actually a superfood and it is so good for you and good for your dog. So you can tap into choice, you can tap into variety, you can tap into so many different elements of food-based enrichment by adding a little bit of parsley or maybe a sprinkle of cinnamon on top of your dog's meals. There are many other studies that show the benefits of turmeric, and there was a couple studies that I found that I will share in the show notes that also talk about how doing a little sprinkle of turmeric can actually help to lower inflammation and pain levels in dogs. And there are some veterinarian-run studies that show that inflammation and pain levels have decreased when dogs are getting a little sprinkle of turmeric on top of their food. So that's very cool. Okay, so now to recap some of what we have talked about in this food-based enrichment episode, I want to give you some takeaways and some action items that you can go ahead and do with your dog. So we talked about chewing for calm. This is food-based enrichment. You want to get a nice, high-quality, long-lasting, all-natural chew. I really love giving Bert beef tracheas. That's something that I order from Farmhounds, but you can find some great bully sticks, and there's also some great products out there that are bully stick holders that can make it even safer to chew on long-lasting chews like this. But giving your dog a long-lasting chew, even for 10 minutes, can give them an endorphins boost that is going to help them feel calmer and more relaxed and happier as you have to leave them home alone. We also talked about how variety equals excitement. So dogs who weren't sure what treat was going to come out of that treat pouch or what topper was going to be on their meal that night, they were more and more excited every time long term in this study that was done. So while dogs love routine, when the treats became really predictable and the rewards were the same every single time, the dogs became less motivated to keep learning and keep working hard at whatever they were doing with their people or their trainers. And we know from the previous episode about cognitive enrichment that it's important to keep your dog engaged and keep teaching them new things and teaching them new tricks. So try adding a little bit of variety into your treat pouch and see if that keeps your dog a little bit extra motivated and extra excited. We also talked about how choice can build your dog's confidence. So if your dog struggles with any kind of anxiety or stress of any kind, giving them little choices throughout their day, like do you want to do a snuffle mat or do you want a slow feeder bowl? Do you want yogurt on your dinner or do you want pumpkin on your dinner? Giving them these little choices that they can make actually gives them more ownership and autonomy in their day, and it boosts their confidence and it makes them happier. And then finally, we talked about how you can add herbs to your dog's dinner. I love this because it's a very simple, inexpensive, easy to do thing that you can enhance your dog's life just by adding a little sprinkle of parsley, a sprinkle of some fresh mint, or a little dash of cinnamon to your dog's bowl. And if you want to see the full talk from my friend Hannah Zulueta, I will put that in the show notes. It's a really awesome talk, and there's more talks from that event that were all just fascinating. So now we are going to get into the listener question portion of this episode. I've got a quick question from a listener, and then I'm going to share with you some of my favorite slow feeder bowls and variations on slow feeder bowls, and that will wrap it up for this episode. So keep listening, keep watching, and again, if you hear this question and think, I want to submit a question too, go to toriknowsdogs.com/podcast. You can submit your question right there on that page. At the bottom of the page, there is a form. I would love to answer your question in a future episode. Okay, so this question comes from my listener, Carolyn, and she asked me, she said, Tori, my doggie, Jessie, has never eaten well since I got her. All she wants is treats. I try not to give her any, but she will still not eat her dog food. So I've tried every kind imaginable, and I would try any advice that you can share with me at this point. So I totally understand this frustration, and I've actually heard a very similar question from tons and tons of listeners and readers of my email newsletter and on my blog as well. I do have a few suggestions. So we already just talked about giving your dog choice. I think this could be a really great thing to try with Jessie, or for anyone who's listening who has this struggle as well. Give your dog 2 different bowls to choose from. Maybe they prefer eating out of a metal bowl versus a plastic bowl or a ceramic bowl. Try different temperatures, add hot water, add room temperature water. You can try adding different toppers. Maybe it's a freeze-dried single ingredient meat topper that is, all beef or all chicken or all fish or something like that. There's all these different kind of things that you could add in to give your dog some options and some choice. And as we've seen and as has been proven in studies, when dogs are given that choice, they, it builds their confidence and they feel more, invested in whatever it is that they're doing. Another thing that you can do is to make up some like food games. So if you are feeding your dog kibble, something that I love to do is a scavenger hunt around the house. This is great on a rainy day or when it's too hot or too cold to go outside. So I'll take my dog's food. Bert gets 1 cup of food for breakfast and 1 cup for dinner. And so I'll take that scoop of food and I'll ask Bert to stay in his place. So you're working on shaping on their mat, which is a whole other activity that we'll get into in another episode. Actually, that's in my activity pack. If you want to learn how to teach your dog a really good stay in their place, you can get them to stay there while you go in the other room and hide little mounds of treats in different places, then ask them to go search for it. Dogs love scavenging for their food. That's actually called contra freeloading, which is a concept that shows that dogs oftentimes prefer working for their food even when there is food sitting out right in front of them. They do really enjoy searching and seeking for it and solving puzzles to find their food. So you can make mealtime a little bit more fun and exciting. And then Carolyn didn't really say this in her particular question, but a lot of people tell me that their dog will only eat treats. She says that she tries not to give her dog treats, but I challenge everyone to kind of rethink, like, what are treats? So treats should really be food. They should be nutrient-dense food as well. So you could put all of your dog's food for the day in a treat pouch and you could hand it out to them a couple pieces at a time, and they would get the nutrients and the calories that they need to stay healthy all day long. But we could also think about different things, cooked chicken or cooked turkey, cooked sweet potatoes, green beans. All of these things are food that could be given to your dog as treats, but they would still be eating and getting nutrients, and it's healthy for them. So the kinds of treats that you want to avoid binging on all the time for your dog are anything that's kind of junk foody. So I personally don't buy these at all, but anything that lists any type of sugar on the label is something that you don't want to give your dog at all, in my opinion. But if you do, give it in very, very small doses, like less than 10% of your dog's calories for the day. So I hope that helped you. Again, if anyone has any other listener questions, I would love to answer them on a future episode. All right, now let's get into this product kind of spotlight, and it's very color coordinated today. If you are watching this on the video, you will be able to see what I'm demonstrating. If you're not watching on the video, get over there. It's on Spotify and on YouTube. You can see me and Bert. Bert is just sleeping through this entire thing. I have a variety of different slow feeder bowls sitting on my lap, and I have something else that is actually a platter. So all of these products are designed to get your dog to eat slower, and they're primarily marketed as, an enrichment activity, food-based enrichment. But they all have kind of different uses, and I find them to be useful for different things. So this is currently our favorite slow feeder bowl. It is from Only Natural Pet. I've really been enjoying this slow feeder bowl, and I love it because it's really big. So I have big dogs. I have Bert now, but I had Lucy. She was enjoying this bowl for a while as well. This bowl is nice and big. I think it's about 10 or 12 inches across. And then the raised portions inside don't create any tiny little crevices. So for day-to-day slow feeding, I find this to be a really great bowl. I always add warm water to my dog's meals, and sometimes I add some other powders and other things, so that there's a lot to slurp up and lick up on this big giant slow feeder bowl. This is like a slow feeder bowl platter combo. combo. And this is currently our favorite one that we use. One that I do not like is this slow feeder bowl here. It's actually from Outward Hound. I love a lot of their products, but this particular bowl doesn't work for my dogs. Maybe it would work for your dog. But what I have found is that these very tight crevices in here, it's a very small channel for the food to fit in, and Bert gets very frustrated when I feed him dinner out of this bowl. So enrichment should always be fun. It should never be frustrating. So I have found that Bert just gets a little bit annoyed when he's trying to figure this one out, and I end up having to turn it over, flip it out, and shake out whatever food is left in it. So this is one that we're not really enjoying because it just tends to be a little bit too frustrating. But if you have a smaller dog, they might love this. And this is why we want to try lots of different things and see what works for you and your dog. Another bowl that I have is this one from Soda Pup, and it does have a lot of really small and tight crevices, but it also has some bigger ones. So for this one, I have actually been using this in our routine, but I'll only put Bert's food in the larger compartments in the bowl, and then I won't put anything in the small compartments. Especially some of these are so small, I can barely get my finger inside. And yesterday I was feeding him dinner out of this bowl, and a little piece of kibble got stuck in one of these little corners, and I had to get out a butter knife to get that piece of kibble out because it was driving Bert crazy. So as always with any kind of enrichment, we don't really want to aim for activities that get your dog to leave you alone for the maximum amount of time. With enrichment, we really want to do stuff that strengthens the bond that you share with your dog. So that's why I supervise all of Bert's meals, and I'm always paying attention to see if he's getting frustrated or a piece of kibble went in somewhere that he can't get to it or something like that. With this bowl last night, I was really watching him closely. He actually picked it up and took it outside, and he was trying to like bang it against the wall to get the kibble out. So I helped him out. However, some of these smaller compartments do still work with something liquid like bone broth. So I have been using this bowl and rotating it in and out. And then finally, the last thing I want to share with you, this is actually called the Mine Pet Platter. And if you're watching on the video, there's probably a bunch of schmutz on it because we use this all the time. And this is a really cool product designed by a woman-owned pet brand. Again, it's called the Mine Pet Platter. And it's a really great material, but it has just these little grooves and just like a little lip all around the edge. And what it's supposed to do is to mimic how dogs would naturally lick and scrape and eat at things in the wild. So imagine if this was like a deer carcass, which unfortunately Bert has been shoulder deep into before. And when I see this and I hear about how she created this, I think, oh yeah, that is a lot like how it would be in the wild. But you can put all of your dog's food on here. You can put liquid on here. It does have this little lip that protects it from spilling and falling all over the place. But what I love this for is an alternative to a lick mat. Some lick mats, again, can have these tiny little crevices that can get kind of frustrating for your dog. And something like this that's big and wide and open, but it has these little divots and grooves that still give your dog that sensory enrichment and all those benefits. I really kind of prefer using this a lot of the time. Those are the products that I wanted to share with you when it comes to food enrichment. Thank you again so much for listening to this episode. I hope that you enjoyed learning all about like why food enrichment is important and some ideas that are a little bit different than just giving your dog a topple or a Kong. I mean, we barely even discussed topples or Kongs. I don't even think I said the word peanut butter on this episode until right now. Again, my name is Tori Mistick. I am the founder of Wear, Wag, Repeat, and this has been Dog Enrichment with Tori Mistick, my brand new limited series podcast. If you have enjoyed listening to this episode, please follow and subscribe. You can find it on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. And remember, the video feed is available on Spotify and YouTube. So Bert right now is snoring next to me. I don't think that it's being picked up on the microphone, but maybe if you listen very closely, you'll hear him snoring, or at least you can go see it on the video. But thank you again for listening and watching. This is a brand new show, so any kind of support that you can give me is very, very appreciated. And again, you can always go to toriknowsdogs.com/podcast to find all of the sources, the products that I talk about, and more information about dog enrichment. And if you try anything that I recommended to you in this episode today, please find me on Instagram at @Mistick and tell me all about it. Send me some photos of your dog too. All right, I will see you back here next week for episode 4, which will be all about visual enrichment. And this is another one that I'm really excited about. I feel like every episode, I'm like, this is my favorite one. And they're all my favorite ones. So I'll see you back here next week to learn all about visual enrichment.